Hello lovely people, and welcome to today's video. I've been meaning to hop on here for a little while actually to share some awesome news that I am currently on the Wilbur Smith Adventure Writing Prize library panel. So I'm reviewing the long list books to then deliberate and communicate with the other panel reviewers later on about what's going to make the shortlist. So I've got a list of 15 books that have been entered into this prize to read and review and kind of give feedback on whether it fits the idea of this award's concept of adventure. And yeah, so far I'm having such a good time. I've read 2 out of the 15 books and I am on a 3rd one. So I thought at the end of each like couple of books or so, I'll sit on here and include it in kind of this like very loose vlog sit down style video just to kind of share my thoughts. And I thought, because I can't speak about what I'm actually reviewing, I can mention like on socials and stuff that I'm on the review panel, but I can't talk about the books. I did want to talk about it in real time, so this seems the best way to do it, to film it sort of during the moment and upload the video later on after the shortlist is out for the masses. So yeah, I'll talk about the first 2 books that I've read so far for the prize. The first one being The Tarot Reader of Versailles. I've got the author's name here because I cannot remember off the top of my head, and that is by Anya Bergman. And I think this is the same author that did The Witches of Vardo, yes. And that's something that's been on my horizon for a while. Funnily enough, The Tarot Reader of Versailles was one that I saw in the library around the end of last year. And I was like, yes, I must read that. Took a picture and it was the first book on my list. So funny how things turn out. Anyway, this is set during quite a tumultuous period of time in history. It's the onslaught of the French Revolution, and there's also the unrest between the Protestants and Catholics and the British taking over Ireland. So we've got quite a few dual narratives reflecting both of those unsettling times in history. And we're following 2 main characters. Our Tarot Reader of Versailles is Lenormand, and she has built herself up from being sent to a nunnery as a young girl after her mother passed away to kind of coming into her own destiny and making her own wealth and prestigiousness. And we also have Courtline, who is a young girl in Ireland working as a like kitchen maid, who wants to do the most that she can to revolutionise Ireland and free them from the hands of the British. They end up meeting along the way because a lot of Irish men are going to France to help with their resistance in the hopes that they can get the same kind of grace back for their own freedoms that they're fighting for in Ireland. And she stows away on a ship to get to France to be able to join her love of her life and make things happen. This is fantastic. I actually gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I had the best time reading this. I really did think that it encapsulated this idea of adventure, time and place and setting, because a lot of the prompts that the awarding body wants you to take note of is, do you feel like you as well as the character has been transported on this journey? And I've got to say definitely so for the Tarot Reader of Versailles, because not are we on a literal journey of, you know, from France to Ireland and Ireland to France and back again. We have more of like a journey of self. There's some queer themes in here. There's the conversation of women making their own without being tied to a man, and kind of the stereotyping of that, what that must mean for you. There's conversations of you know, sexuality, freedom, fighting for your country, lots of things that affect a person, a character, and I really feel like we were taken on a journey there. So I loved this. I thought it was fantastic. So that's Elsa scratching and stretching her claws over there. Yeah, I had the best time reading this. I will say that I feel like Courtline's POVs read a bit easier. It had more of a flow, but I think it was because of her diary entry writing style, it did really feel as if it was just easy to kind of fall into. But don't get me wrong, I really liked both of our protagonists' voices and the journeys that they went along the way, what they discovered about themselves and their country and those around them. And yeah, I absolutely adored it. Next up, I also finished The Paris Express by Emma Donoghue, and I've been wanting to read something by this author for a while. I still have room in my never-ending TBR, so it was cool to be able to, you know, try her latest books, or latest novel here in this way. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I do feel like it still is very on brand for the writing competition, the literary prize, but for me as a reader, it didn't grip me as much as the Tarot Reader of Versailles did. And it was interesting because reading them one after the other, I was a bit worried that I would feel like comparisons a little bit too much, but they are two very different stories. But what was comparable was the fact that they had Irish characters and the setting was France, right? So that did stick in my head. And then I've just glimpsed a couple of blurbs from other books, and it seems like France and Ireland seems to be a theme. I don't know if that was a specific thing or it's just how that's happened. I don't remember them saying that was going to be a theme, but it was interesting to note anyway. So yeah, this is about another time in history, so again based on real events but kind of woven into, you know, a fictional account of real events. And it's about a plethora of characters who find themselves on this Paris Express. I think they're travelling from Normandy, the countryside, into the bustling city of Paris. For whatever reasons, some have been sent there to improve their health, sent to the countryside, so they're travelling from there back to Paris. So yeah, sorry, some has been sent there to improve their health. Some are leaving the countryside to try and get better prospects in Paris, such as work, better living conditions, that sort of thing. And yeah, there's a whole load of different reasons for why all these different characters have decided to be in Normandy and are now on their way back into Paris. What it all alludes to is this catastrophe that is, you know, it's brewing in the background. We've got a little bit of anarchy, we've got a little bit of rebellion and things that might come to a head in that regard. So throughout the whole book you are feeling like some doom is impending, right? I just didn't find it as gripping, as page-turnery as the Tarot Reader of Versailles. I found it like interesting, but I think had I not had, and that's another thing, the first 2 books that I'm talking about, I had the audiobook accompanying with it. I was able to get it through my library audiobook service. And I think with this particular one, with the Paris Express, had I not had the audiobook, I may have DNF'd it. They do allow you to DNF during this prize competition. They want you to give like at least 50 pages a go, which is my rule of thumb for giving a book a go as well. And you know, there's so many books to get through, there's always going to be someone else on the panel that might review and love that book, you know, so it's not doing a disservice in that regard. But yeah, I think I may have lean towards DNFing it had I not had the audiobook to help carry me along, because I think in the end the majority of it was, you know, leaning heavily on the audiobook whilst I did other things. Don't get me wrong, it's a fine story, it's really interesting, it's opened my eyes to another piece of history that I had no information about, didn't know about at all. This sort of catastrophe with this express train. And I really loved the characterization of the people that are all traveling on the train, the conversation of like classism, ethnicity, all of these like deeper meaningful conversations. Sexuality again was another topic of conversation, and it was such a good story to be in these characters' heads, people that might not have had like their story expressed or had the opportunity, now got like a fictional account, right? Hopefully for the better, who knows. But yeah, it just didn't grip me as much as the Tarot Reader of Versailles did. I didn't feel like I wanted to pick it up and turn the page and see what was going on. It was okay. I'm glad I read it, don't get me wrong, and I am glad that I finished it, but I do think it would have been a struggle for me had I not had the audiobook. So as for current read, I'm reading The Pledge. Let me just get the author up. This is by Sarah Yarwood Lovett. I haven't read anything by this author before, and it seems like a kind of paralegal mystery kind of story, following a very like famous, I don't know if she's a barrister or like a lawyer. It's a lawyer, and she has just won quite a high end case, and is like her marriage is crumbling. She's in poor public light because of the case that she's won is quite devastating to the environment, and then she's got this convoluted kind of riddle, I guess you could say, that invites her to a Caribbean island for the weekend to be a part of this secret elite organization. So of course her interest is piqued, like, is this a scam, is this legit, what is going on? She goes for it, and yeah, I'm currently on the part where she's discovering what's going on. I am only on page 32. I am going to give this another 20 or so pages because I'm not super gripped. It's not something that I would typically read, and already I'm finding it like my mind is wandering, so I'm not super interested. Our main character isn't overly likable. Yeah, I'm just finding this one to be something that I don't really have much interest in, so that's going to probably be my first DNF, and then I'll move on to the next book. Yeah. So as I expected, I did end up DNFing The Pledge. It just wasn't for me, unfortunately. I struggled to really get into it. I found that the main character that we were following was quite unlikable, and I just wasn't gripped to pick it up, unfortunately. So I ended up starting another one called What Was Left Unsaid, and I've sort of slowed on that in a minute because I'm reading another thing, but I'm intrigued. It's kind of like a generational family saga, I would say, with mystery elements. And from the first chapter, we're following the family, like as a young family. The 3 siblings are all kids, and that we can tell that they're on their way somewhere. They're on this road. It seems to just be them. They need to stop for petrol, and they just get this eerie feeling. They just get this weird sense that some violence or something bad's going to happen, and then just when you think, oh, is it going to happen now, we flip to like 30 years in the future, and the siblings are all adults, and they're all kind of living sort of semi-estranged lives, different parts of the world, different parts of the country, and they're not really great at keeping in touch with their parents or each other. The eldest sibling gets a phone call from their dad, and he basically says like their mum's not doing too great health wise, and she's just got this desire to see all her kids at once in one place, but she wants them to do a road trip journey like the good old days. So I think through this we're gonna have some heated and honest discussions about what happened, what was the event that kind of pushed them away from each other, that they're alluding to but not actually discussing, and kind of go from there really. And yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm a couple of chapters in and I'm having a good time so far. But I'm also reading, and this is one that I saw on the shelves at work today, so I grabbed a physical copy, so that's great. Ali Smith's Glyph, which is funny because I'd read 2 of her works before and decided to be like, that's it for me. I think I read Winter, and I remember being like intrigued by it and it having quite a lot of interesting elements, but a lot of it went over my head. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars. And apparently I've also read Girl Meets Boy, and apparently I gave that a 1 out of 5 stars. I don't remember reading it, but in that review when I was just looking over it, it said that I probably won't read any more Ali Smith, and apparently I hadn't until now. So this one so far seems more, I guess, like my kind of thing, and I have looked up reviews just to see what other people were saying, because although I was sort of enjoying the flow of it and getting to grips with it, I still didn't really get what it was about. And it's been described as like a sort of more modern reimagining, loosely based on A Brave New World, which I haven't read, but is on my TBR and is something I'm softly familiar with. And now it makes sense, like I'm getting it more now in that sort of that mindset of, okay, these are the ideas, that's what's going on, that's what they mean. I think another thing that put me off a little bit at first is the lack of speech marks, but I'm sort of seeing it in the way that I enjoy Max Porter's books. From what I can remember, he seems to not use speech marks from what I've read anyway, and I like his stuff, so I'm reading it more in that kind of way, and already I'm having a better time with the experience. Sorry, Elsa's just got in her litter box, so you can probably hear her. I'm about halfway through, and it's very easy to get through. It's very easy breezy, but it does take a little while with the writing style being so different to what I'm used to. So this one says, once upon a time, not very far from now, 2 children come home to find a line of wet red paint around the outside of their house. So begins the freewheeling and urgent new novel from Ali Smith, the story of 2 young people and a horse called Glyph, on the run from history as it takes a turn for the worse. I'm just worried that the horse is going to die. I have this awful feeling that something bad's going to happen, and I think that's making me a little bit nervous. But it does say here, miraculous, tender, hilarious, and ultimately uplifting, a ray of hope. So hopefully not. One of the other books on the Wilbur Smith prize list is another one that I managed to see in the library, and that is Death in the Arctic. I recognise these covers and I recognise the authors' names, but this will be the first time that I've read anything from this author, and I think it is a standalone, although what I like is that all the covers kind of like match in a way, but I'm pretty sure they're their own thing. And honestly, I know nothing about this. So this is set in a frozen wilderness with a killer in the skies. When an aspiring travel writer, Chloe Campbell, is invited aboard a luxury airship flying to the North Pole, she thinks she's bagged the opportunity of a lifetime, but she hasn't had long to admire the dazzling icy views before a fellow passenger is found dead in their cabin. Trapped at the top of the world, the group agrees a tragic accident has occurred, but as the hours tick by, fear turns to doubt. It seems everyone's a suspect, and it isn't long before the passengers begin to turn on each other. Ooh, this sounds familiar. This sounds like something I've read in the past. I can't remember if it was on a boat or a plane or a train, but it had a story like this, and I can't remember if I ended up finishing that or not. But yeah, okay, I'm intrigued. I'm glad that I've got a physical copy that I can read and go between this and the ebook. Same for this. So yeah, that's the progress so far. Got this to hand to pick up next, and currently in the middle of this one and having a good time so far. So yes. I'm about to go to sleep, hence the low light in the bedroom, but I was just reading a couple of chapters before I went to sleep, and now I'm seeing Brave New World everywhere, and I'm like, it makes so much sense. But there's a passage on page 110 that says, every classic old horse story I've ever chanced upon in this brave new unlibraried world deals with the bloodiness of humanity to other creatures as well as each other, and more often than not ends in dutiful sadness, as if the story, not totally broken, is at least broken in. And then the next chapter starts with Brave New World. Then there's this, which in the end, or maybe the beginning, might be called a sister moment to the one above. It's a moment that's proved to be my own sublime. I don't know, I feel like it's making so much more sense now in my head, and the conversations that they've just had on art and horse, like particularly this painting by an artist called Stubbs, who painted very fearful horses being like terrorized by lions. That whole passage was brilliant. I felt like it was just so, I don't know, awe-inspiring. It was very the sublime, as they're saying. And yeah, my gosh, I'm really enjoying this so far. I think it's just opening up more thoughts to me. It's one of those weird things, like I'm enjoying it and it's interesting and it's thought-provoking, but I can't guess what I would rate this yet, which by this point usually I would have a solid idea, you know, the sort of threshold of stars I would give it, but I don't know, I'm drifting at the minute, so yeah, we'll sleep on it. I'm gonna go to bed now. So I've just finished reading Glyph by Ali Smith, and this has left me feeling really sad and melancholy. There were so many pages that I highlighted with my phone, at least because it's the library book, to make note of and like quote in my reading journal. But yeah, I liked this, I think, a lot more than the other 2 books that I have read by Ali Smith. It was kind of whimsical and very logical in times, and dystopian, but also not too far in the future. It's things that are happening now, and it was very thought-provoking. Yeah, and it's just left me feeling like melancholy and almost bereft. So I will be going on to start in Death in the Arctic next, and yeah, that's a little bit of progress for this Wilbur Smith competition. Hello, it's just now as I'm writing down in my little reading journal that I realised I forgot to talk about Death in the Arctic by Tom Hindle before I returned it to the library today. And yeah, I ended up enjoying this more than I was expecting. So it's so we're following a cast of characters, and one of our main protagonists is an aspiring travel writer called Chloe, who's invited aboard a luxury airship flying to the North Pole. She's convinced that she has bagged the opportunity of a lifetime, as she has been struggling to kind of get her foot through the door for the more luxe magazines in travel writing. But unfortunately, it's not long until a fellow member of the clientele is found dead in their cabin. I ended up giving this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars, and I enjoyed it much more than I was expecting to. I definitely preferred Chloe's POVs. You do get a few different perspectives in this story, but not from everybody, I would say, or not a substantial amount from everybody that is included, like in the airship. But hers was the more engaging. I felt like we got to know her a little bit more, and she definitely had like more chapters, more passages where it was from her perspective. I did quite like Devon's perspective as well, but again, he felt a little bit more surface level, especially when compared to Chloe, and I wish we would have got to know a little bit more about what was in his head. Liam was at the bartender, and he was really slimy and just gross and just really like laddish, you know what I mean? And Ezra seemed really chaotic in his desire to want to achieve, you know, his goals, his determination. It was too much, right? It was too much. Howard he seemed again like in the opposite end, obsessed with, you know, trusting people and knowing people and understanding what was going on, to a point where it just felt like it was anxiety filled, right? Of suspicions underneath the surface, like simmering within characters. And I really enjoyed the kind of cold, isolated, locked door, I guess, kind of murder mystery that this was in the end. In terms of currently reading, I am back to What We Left Unsaid, which is that kind of family road trip one, where they're slowly unpicking what happened in the past. So that one I'm getting some headway through now, because I had put it down while some of the physical books were coming in, and they were just more easy, I guess, to read at the time. But I've also started listening to Caesar's Avenger, which I'm a bit unsure of. It might end up being a DNF. I ended up having to get the Audible version through Audible because I wasn't sure how much I was going to enjoy like sitting down and reading it. I had a feeling that I probably wouldn't enjoy it like a lot and would kind of neglect to pick it up. So I thought, let me just go for the audiobook. And I already had like suspicions that I'd feel some sort of way because it's a third book in a series, and I don't have time to go back and read the first 2 books. So yeah, I knew it was going to be kind of shooting myself in the foot with this anyway, because I already feel some sort of way about not picking up the prior 2 books. I'm jumping into this story like not knowing the characters. I mean, it's historical, right? So I know who the majority of who they're referring to, but in this world, and you know, the author, I'm sure, is taking some creative freedom in fleshing out these characters in his mind. So I don't know what they're like on a personal level in that way. And I know that's probably going to sway my thoughts. I almost feel like it'd be kinder to maybe DNF that one, because I already feel like it's going to be a lower rating, mainly because I don't know what's going on. But also listening to the audiobook so far, it does feel engaging, it does feel exciting. I just think I'm a little bit at a loss, so I'm going to have to decide what to do with that one. But yeah, for now, that's all I've got to say. So I finished Caesar's Avenger by Alex Go. A couple of days ago. I did the audiobook for that one completely, pretty much, and I was a little bit apprehensive getting into this one because it's a third book in a series, and I hadn't had like experience with the other two books, knowing that it follows on, right? And I knew I wouldn't have much time during this long list prize to get to the other two books, so I just went into it. It's not something I'd usually do, but I really enjoyed it, actually. I think I gave it like a 3 out of 5 stars, and it was basically set, the trilogy or the series is called Mark Antony, and it's following that period of time in ancient Rome, basically. We have a little bit of information of Cleopatra. I was kind of amazed that we didn't have more of that, but it definitely feels like it's following the course of, you know, the whole life of Mark Antony rather than just that bit that we know him for. So yeah, it's Caesar's Avenger. Caesar is dead by this point, and he is avenging the death of him. And yeah, it was very action-packed. It was very easy to fall into the pacing of the story and the excitement of it all. And I quite like, you know, ancient Rome, ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, that sort of stuff, usually pertaining more to like the myths and legend sides of things. But I think because I did have that general enjoyment, it made it even more easy to fall into enjoyment, right? So that is another book on the long list finished. I am currently making my way through 2 books. I'm listening to The Outback, and I'm also reading What We Left Unsaid. I am on page 219, so this much left, and I'm doing a combination of physical and digital for that one. The Outback I'm just listening to, and then I've got some more here physically. So yeah, the others I'll be waiting for the audiobooks to come through. So I have a fantasy. This one is A Fate Forged in Fire. I'll give you guys all the details and everything like that when it comes to reviewing them later on in the video. I've got Boudica's Daughter. These two I'm really excited about. There is, oops, if I can pick them up, number 2 Whitehall Court, which is shorter than I was expecting. I don't know how I'm going to get on with this one, and also The Shadow I'm not sure how I'm going to get on with, because they're not things I would usually go to. But number 2 Whitehall Court is shorter than I expected, so I might be able to just push through it even if I'm not enjoying it. But that's a bit hasty of me. Let me give them a chance, of course. But yeah, as I say, physically and digitally reading What We Left Unsaid, and audibly listening to The Outback. So I will catch you up to date soon. got a couple of books to catch you up to speed with for the Wilbur Smith Prize. I've read 1, 2, 3 since I last checked in with you for Caesar's Avenger. So the first of those 3 books is The Outback by Sarah Ox. This one I ended up giving a 3.5 out of 5 stars for, and I enjoyed this much more than I was anticipating. Actually, I listened to this via Audible, I think it was, and so it's following like a cast of characters, but mainly through a back and forth perspective of a decade ago and the present time, like 2 different characters. So meeting a decade ago at an adventure camp in the Outback, a group of youngsters kind of like in their early 20s are just living their life, doing an experience of a lifetime in a far place, getting some experience, getting some identity, and just living their life on this adventure camp, right, when 2 of their members die in different circumstances. Anyway, we're forward into like a decade now, and they return for a much anticipated, I guess you could say, in some ways, and anxiety ridden in other ways, reunion. First and foremost, to see how everyone's doing, and also to figure out once and for all what happened to those 2 members of the original camp group. This one was, a lot of fun. I thought it had some really in-depth characters. There were some really interesting twists and turns. I wouldn't really say any of the characters were particularly likeable, but they felt like genuine, flawed characters. I did call the culprit earlier on, but it didn't take away from any of the excitement and like the lead up to the big reveal. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. I definitely recommend it. You're probably going to hear Elsa in the background. She's doing a toilet business. Anyway, the next one I finished up, and this is one that I'd kind of been slowly reading throughout the couple of weeks, was What We Left Unsaid by Winnie M. Lee, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars, so I really liked it. Following 3 estranged siblings on an unexpected road trip, they're uncovering a startling family secret and larger truths about being Asian American in a post-COVID world. This is another one that does have like flashback chapters where you're centered in 1991, where this event that changed everyone, whether they knew it or not, happens, and then years later where they're making this road trip to visit their elderly parents. And yeah, I think it was one of the books that will stay with me for a long time out of this whole series of books that I'm reading for this prize, because it just, I think the estranged sibling part really got to me to begin with, and I just loved how they tried to put aside their differences in order to do this almost last request for their parents. But on top of that, I loved that the road trip itself almost felt like a character in a way, and how during like the long hot desert days where they were just driving, they were able to reflect inwardly about past experiences, things that they feel like they misremember, but also are quite strongly sure that actually happened in the past. Their own privileges, their own griefs, and outwardly be able to tackle some of those difficult conversations with each other. It was tense, educational, moving, emotional. All the siblings had very distinct personalities. They were very different from each other, and I really enjoyed the perspective, or I felt like I could learn from each of the perspective that they gave. You had like the sheltered, privileged upbringing of Bonnie, the older sister. Kevin, the middle child, was very close-minded, very Trump supporter, very, I can't with this woke generation sort of thing. And Alex, the younger sister, was grappling with how to tell various members of her family that she was married to a woman and they were expecting a child, and that the woman is black, because all of that is a package to unpack in her life. And yeah, I thought it was fantastic, the road trip element of it, the untangling of difficult conversations, and the heart of it, of trying to do something that will hopefully help to, or be a starting place for the family to heal, something that their mother in particular really would have liked them to do, and doing it, getting that done, almost not necessarily putting aside everyone's differences and just going to do it because your parent asked you, but more so actually actively working through those differences. And, you know, if you can't come to a compromise, at least acknowledge that this is how you both feel, and that might not change, but I respect and appreciate what you've brought to this conversation. You know what I mean? So yeah, I thought that was a fantastic book. Another one that I'd highly recommend. The last one I'm going to talk about right here for now is one that unfortunately didn't grab me as much as I thought it would be. This is The Boy from the Sea by Garrett Carr, and I gave this one a 2 out of 5 stars, unfortunately. It's set in 1973 in a closed-knit community in Ireland, and the town is set abuzz when a baby is found abandoned at the beach. He's taken in by Ambrose, a local fisherman, and his family, and it's a story that explores the ties that make us and bind us as a family and as a wider community. This, I think, one of the good takeaways were it really does take a village to raise a baby, because how close-knit it is. Everybody has their opinions. There's a lot of rumours and gossip and just silliness, but they will show up and look out for everybody. You know what I mean? So we've got another example of tense sibling relationships, difficult sibling relationships, both with Christine and I can't remember her sister's name, but Christine is Ambrose's wife, and also Declan, who was their child, like their sole only child before they adopted Brendan, who was the baby that was found at the ocean, or at sea, at the beach, whatever. Now Declan, from very early on, realises that he's not going to be centre of attention, and he doesn't like that. He's not happy with how this family has quite quickly expanded and evolved, and he feels like because Brendan has this almost mythic folklore nature about him, everybody sees him as not real, but a bit more other. He's more with the fairies, a whimsy child, something that is to be celebrated, I guess. Yeah, it's an interesting kind of thing to tackle, really, especially when you consider it on a deeper level of it mirroring the relationship that he sees probably of his mum and his mum's sister, his aunt, not getting on at all, right? But I do think some of the resentment that Declan held for Brendan was a bit unfounded. Like it boiled down to, you know, honest jealousy, but I think it was a bit extreme for no reason. I couldn't understand that. Brendan, I thought he was going to come into himself as a character a bit more. He did remain, I'm in two minds of this really, because he remained this mythic character. You don't really know a lot about his background, but at the same time I feel like they missed out on a trip, because I thought, not that I wanted it to be like magical realism or fantasy or anything like that, but I really thought they were gonna lean in a little bit more to this legendary folklore aspect, because he was seen to be like good luck. Like as he gets older, he's giving blessings to people. Like I thought they were going to be a bit more, I don't even know how to describe this properly. I thought it was going to be more folklore legend vibes, whimsy vibes. I thought they were going to have that to be more of a central part, and it wasn't. But you know, that's not the book that it was, and that's fair enough. I also went into this thinking it would be a little bit like The Light Between Oceans, which is a book that I really adored, but it ended up being a little bit more like 44 Scotland Street, which I've listened to some abridged like radio play productions and I've enjoyed them, but it's not typically my go-to. It's not really my thing. But in that I mean some of the in-betweeny chapters did like a little overview of, oh, Gary's doing this person ended up in the hospital, this person's dog died. It gives you a little overview of the whole community, and a little nod to them because they're names that we're going to pull up later on in the main story. Do you know what I mean? Like it did feel nice in that way, how there was a whole village that you was learning about here, there and everywhere, but it just didn't, like talking about it now, I did like it, but it wasn't my sort of story. It didn't capture my interest that much. I had it on audiobook, and I think if that came in any later, I would have struggled to read it digitally and get through it. So it might have been a DNF. I mean, I did end up giving it 2 stars, so possible that it should have just been a DNF. But it was just okay. I can tell how people, I can see how people would enjoy it and like it, but it felt too meandering, dull. It didn't feel like, well, the point of this prize is for adventure, and it didn't feel like an adventure to me. Don't get me wrong, the characters all have their own stories, and you know, they go through growths and challenges and changes and things like that, but I wasn't connected enough to them to feel total awe and inspiration from these character growths and challenges and the journeys that they went on, you know, on their own, right? So I wouldn't necessarily categorize it as that. And yeah, it was just a little bit of a wah for me, unfortunately. Pleasant enough story, but that's it really. So I've just finished A Fate Forged in Fire, and this was so much fun. I'm probably going to give this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I think this makes the 10th book that I've read for the writing prize, and I had the best time. If I've not already said, we are following the true queen of Chien. I'm probably saying that completely wrong, who has been hiding basically under the royals' noses for like the past 26 years until she is ready to claim her rightful inheritance as the true queen. It's, I guess, a romantasy in aspects. There is like morally grey villains, there's betrayal. Oh my god, the twin sibling relationships I loved. It was like great like banter and devotion, and just they would easily humble each other. There was like adoptive relationships, people that were parent figures for the twins that they were growing up, and I loved that. The soul bonding between a magic wielder and a magical creature was amazing. I love things like that, and that was well done. But we also had some like more thought-provoking themes, such as like trigger warning, but like forced attempted sterilization, women's reproductive health and rights, mental health, forced institution. Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic, full of adventure, full of really powerful characters, fantastic themes. Oh, it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Amira, our main character, she is very headstrong, and that does kind of take her away from thinking logically a lot of the time, and yeah, it was frustrating. I was annoyed because she was acting so rash. She was acting so brashly and stupidly, to be quite frank, and not considering all the consequences, all the outcomes. But I can't fault the fact that she was doing it for just purposes, you know, to help as many people as she could, to seek vengeance on those that have been harmed or killed that she loved. Oh my god, she was a great character. I didn't like the impending relationship between Fiorian, the like opponent, I guess you say, the rival the royal family that she doesn't believe need to be on the throne. But I couldn't also deny that there was sexual tension in abundance. So yeah, that was satisfying, but also like I was not a fan of the relationship. I was just, there's too much had happened for me to properly get on board with. But yeah, it was a really fun story, with some deeper elements than I was expecting, as well. So that was pleasantly surprising. So 4 out of 5 stars for this one. let's pick up another one.
Friends, we are actually going to stop here because this video, I had just had too much content. I like to natter. I did some fun things and I wanted to share them. So we are stopping here, making this a two-parter. In the next one, we're going to kick things off with a zoo trip, which you can see a little bit here, to Port Lim to celebrate my friends' birthdays. And then we'll get right back into the final 5 books that I needed to review. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.